Picture this. A man sitting on the dirty floor of a railway station, hands stretched out, begging for coins. Day after day, the same routine. But then, one conversation changes everything. Within 6 months, that same man is wearing a suit, traveling first class, running his own business. What happened? He didn't find treasure. He didn't win a lottery. He simply changed one thing: the way he saw himself. Stay with me because this story will challenge everything you believe about limitations. There was a beggar who spent his days at one of the busiest railway stations in the city. Thousands of people passed by him every single day. Some dropped coins into his bowl, most ignored him completely. He had been doing this for years. It had become his identity. When someone asked who he was, he would say, "I am just a beggar." That's all he believed he could ever be. One afternoon, a well-dressed businessman walked past him. The beggar, as usual, stretched out his hand and asked for money. But this businessman stopped. He looked at the beggar with curious eyes and asked him a strange question. "Have you ever given anything to anyone?" The beggar was confused. He thought to himself, "I'm the one asking for money. Why would anyone expect me to give something?" He shook his head and said he had nothing to give. The businessman smiled and said something that would haunt the beggar for days. "That's your problem. You only want to receive, but you never offer anything in return. Life works on exchange. If you want something, you must be willing to give something first." And with that, the businessman walked away, leaving the beggar sitting there stunned and speechless. For the next few days, the beggar couldn't stop thinking about those words: exchange, give something to receive something. But what could he possibly give? He had no money, no possessions, nothing of value. He looked around the railway station, feeling more hopeless than ever. Then one morning, as he sat near the platform, he noticed something he had never paid attention to before. Just outside the station, there was a small patch of land where wildflowers grew. Bright yellow and white flowers swaying gently in the breeze. They were free. They were beautiful. And suddenly, an idea sparked in his mind. What if he offered flowers in exchange for money? He walked over, picked a handful of flowers, and returned to his usual spot. This time, when people passed by, he didn't just stretch out his hand. He held up a flower and said, "A flower for you if you'd like to give something in return." At first, people were surprised. Some smiled, some ignored him, just like before. But something incredible started happening. People who had never stopped for him before began to pause. A woman took a flower and handed him a 10-rupee note. A young man accepted a flower and dropped coins into his bowl, saying, "Thank you, this made my day." The beggar couldn't believe it. He was receiving more money than ever before, and people were actually happy. They weren't giving him money out of pity anymore. They were paying for something they wanted: a simple, beautiful flower. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like a beggar. He felt like he was offering something valuable. Now, before we go further, I want to ask you something. How many times have you limited yourself because of how you see yourself? How many dreams have you buried because you thought, "I'm not good enough," or "I'm not the type of person who does that"? Think about it. And if this story is making you think differently, do me a favor, hit that like button and subscribe to Motivational because we're just getting to the most powerful part. Weeks passed. The beggar continued selling flowers and his confidence grew. Then one day, he saw the businessman again, walking through the station. The beggar's heart raced. He ran toward him, holding out a bunch of fresh flowers and said, "Sir, flowers for you. Please take them. And if you'd like, you can give me something in return." The businessman stopped and looked at him. A slow smile spread across his face. He took the flowers, handed the beggar some money, and said, "You've learned the most important lesson. You're no longer just a beggar. You've become a businessman." Those words hit the beggar like lightning. Businessman, not beggar. Businessman.
He stood there frozen as the businessman walked away. And in that moment, something inside him shifted completely. He realized that he had been carrying the wrong identity all along. He wasn't a beggar, he was someone who provided value. He was a trader. People weren't giving him money out of charity, they were paying for a product he offered. That night, he made a decision. He would leave the railway station. He would stop thinking of himself as a beggar and start thinking of himself as a businessman. He used the money he had saved to buy more flowers from a wholesale market. He found a small spot near a busy road and set up a proper flower stall. It wasn't easy. There were struggles. There were days when he barely made any profit, but he didn't give up because his mindset had changed. He no longer saw himself as someone asking for help. He saw himself as someone building something. 6 months later, the businessman was walking through the same railway station when someone called out to him. He turned around and saw a well-dressed young man approaching him with a confident smile. It took him a moment to recognize who it was. It was the beggar, except he wasn't a beggar anymore. The young man shook his hand warmly and said, "Sir, I want to thank you. You changed my life. I now run a flower business. I supply flowers to shops, events, and weddings. I'm traveling today to meet a new client in another city. And it all started because you taught me one thing. I had to change the way I saw myself." The businessman smiled, genuinely proud. He said, "You did this yourself. I just helped you see what was already inside you." The young man nodded and said, "I realized something important. I was never really a beggar. I was always a businessman. I just didn't know it. The moment I started seeing myself differently, my life changed." Now, let me ask you this. What identity are you carrying that's holding you back? Are you calling yourself a failure when you're actually someone who's learning? Are you calling yourself unlucky when you're actually someone who hasn't tried the right approach yet? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I really want to know, what limiting belief are you ready to let go of today? This story teaches us one of the most powerful truths about life. You are not defined by your circumstances. You're defined by how you see yourself. That beggar could have spent his entire life sitting on that platform, believing he had no choice. But the moment he changed his mindset, everything changed. The businessman didn't give him money. He gave him something far more valuable, a new way of thinking. And that one shift in perspective transformed his entire life. So many of us go through life carrying labels that don't serve us. We say, "I'm not smart enough, I'm not talented enough, I'm not lucky enough." But the truth is, you are enough. You just have to start seeing yourself that way. If this story inspired you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Hit that subscribe button and join the Motivational family because we're here to remind you every single day that your potential is limitless. Remember, change your mindset and your life will change. You are not what the world tells you. You are what you believe you can become. So believe bigger, dream bigger, and watch your life transform. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next story. Keep rising.